Hey everybody, welcome to the Patty G Show. We are here with a gentleman who is striving to showcase his community, striving to make a change each and every day in what he does. Stuart Gilly is in the studio this week talking all things podcasting, community involvement, and volunteering. Really excited episode upcoming and heading your way. And if you're loving the show, make sure you subscribe and share. Help us get the word out there and promote Louisiana, promote the entrepreneurs doing amazing things in our community as best you can. So enjoy the show. Thank you again to our wonderful sponsors that bring you this show each and every week, Lake Men's Health Center, PB&J Productions. Without further ado, have a good time. Tell me about Muddy Waters Clear Vision. Let's start. I feel like that's a good stepping off point for this. What is it and how did it become?
It's a passion project. So that was really birthed out of like failure. So when I was a freshman at LSU in 1998, my grandfather was getting a little bit older. And my grandfather lived in Marksville, Louisiana. He was this mountain of a man, just really taught me how to treat people. Like we would go to a grocery store, and so he spoke Cajun French because he's in Avoyelles Parish. And
yeah, I think we're related.
Really?
Yeah, my grandfather was in Marksville.
No way,
Cajun
are you
French.
kidding me?
My grandmother was Mrs. Marksville back in high school or something like that.
Okay, all right. We'll have to like compare.
We'll have to look at our treaties.
Actually, all I have to do is call my Aunt Margie, who lives in Bunkie, and she's got like 7 degrees of how everyone's related to Avoyelles Parish. But anyway, my grandfather was Dr. F.P. Bourdon, so you can ask your family about it, and they would know him. He was like the town doctor. But I remember going to like a grocery store with him one time, and this is just one specific moment, but there's hundreds like this where we're walking in, there's like this homeless guy outside the store, and my grandfather stops and talks to him in Cajun French, and like, I don't know, just has this like really good conversation. And he walks in, he sees like the successful businessman and has this conversation. It's like he was friends with everybody. It was like he didn't care like who you were or what status you had. And so always like, I just valued so much like how he saw the human side of everybody and just was like, he just poured into them. And so for me, that was like really important. Yet he was also very, very successful. He was like, he was in the LSU Hall of Fame. I mean, he's just all these things. And so I'm 18 years old, and I said to my cousin Daniel, I'm gonna go get a video camera, and I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna interview Papa. His name was Papa for us. I'm gonna interview him and get all these stories out of him because I want my kids to know that one day, right? And I never did it. I like literally just blinked. 2004 is here, and he dies. He passes away. And so we had his 100th birthday coming up. He was born in 1921. So this is in 2021. His birthday is like July 30th. Well, we have his 100th birthday coming up, and our whole family decides that we're going to go up and rent a house at Lake Bruin, and we're going to celebrate. And so I'm telling one of my partners, Gabe Murillo, and I'm like, hey, this weekend we're going to do this deal. And I'm like, did I ever tell you how I just like really dropped the ball with my grandfather? You know, and so I tell him this whole story, and he was like, so what do you want to do about that? I was like, I don't know. I was like, maybe one day I'll start a podcast, and I'll just interview people who are just like normal, everyday people who are doing just like, they're just being good people. And they've got this really great story, but like, they're not like somebody that a national group would ever care to hear their story.
Yeah.
And I was like, and really honestly, like, because of like the pain of not doing that for my I was like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't even care if like 10 people listened to it or 5 people, but like, what if those 5 people were like their kids or grandkids who never got to really know them or see them, you know? So it was kind of like, I don't know. I think maybe one day like this is inspiring me to do that. And he was like, okay, cool. So we hang up. No big deal. A little while later, he randomly texts me and says, hey, what's your home address? So I texted my home address. I'm not even
you're not even asking questions. You're just saying, here's my home address.
He's my business partner.
Right. Well, I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, like, whatever. I don't know. I'm thinking he's got to mail me something, or he's got to whatever. I don't even know. I just don't even think about it. So I send it to him, and like a day later, this is like Thursday. We're about to leave on Friday to go do this family trip to Lake Bruin, and I get a package at the door, and he texts me. He's like, "Hey, grab the package." So like I go outside, I grab this package, I go inside, I unbox it, and I pull it out, and it's this Yeti microphone. It's a podcast microphone.
Yep.
So I call him and I'm like, "What is this?" And he goes, "Take it with you this weekend and interview your family to share their stories about your grandfather." And I'm like, man, this is crazy. So he teaches me how to set it all up. And anyway, we go do it. It was really cool. It was a cool moment to be able to do that. But while he's helping me set up, he said, "Look, we're not ready right now, but in a little while, in maybe a year or so, we'll be ready. But I want you to start doing podcasting." And I was like, "Okay, well, what would I podcast about?" And he's like, "Well, you already told me. You just want to interview people, and have them share their stories." And so Muddy Waters Clear Vision literally came from that desire. And I think as I started like thinking about, okay, it's time to do this. I coach CEOs. That's one of the things that I do, and I absolutely love it. And for me, it's a ministry. And so it was like, okay, well, what if I invite those people? And the CEOs I coach are, they're not like these are Baton Rouge companies, right? But it's like, invite them on and just hear about like, what are some of those moments that created clarity for them. And we didn't have a name of the podcast. I mean, I think we've got through like 8 or 9 episodes before.
With no name?
With no name. So
what were you doing? Were you recording intros and outros at this time, or were you just...
What's an intro and an outro?
Okay. Got it.
You don't know how raw this is still for us. But
I love it though.
But it was just one of these things where like I would just invite people and they'd come to my office. And by the way, we do it on one mic. Like you're fancy with 2. I need to get a second mic apparently.
Do you still have the Yeti? It's still the Yeti microphone?
Oh, it's like okay. Actually in my car right now. But anyway, I just put it.
That should have been the prop.
We put it right in the middle, and I just like, "Hey, Patty, thanks for coming today." And it's I don't even know what I'm doing, but my goal is in Muddy Waters Clear Vision is really just around the idea of like, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I remember somebody asking me one time what qualifies me to be able to coach people, and I'm like, ooh, probably not much, but I have gotten my ass kicked about 20,000 times, and I just keep getting up the next day and going back at it. So, maybe that does. And so I think the podcast is kind of like, I want to know about those moments that have been just like the toughest times for them. Like I'm a vulnerable person. So I always encourage those around me to just kind of deal with that. Like the vulnerability of our past does not define who we are. It's actually just like, I think part of the fuel that helps us get to where we're going. Right. So it's like when you can kind of have some ownership around that and be like, look, I dealt with this like really terrible scenario in my past, or this thing that I thought I was down and out. And you realize that blessing is like that thing is actually created like the most amount of clarity for you. And so I think that's kind of how we stumbled across the name of the Muddy Waters Clear Vision, thinking about, the Mississippi River, kind of the big muddy, right, coming through this town. But I just think Baton Rouge has got some amazing entrepreneurs. And I think we've got some people here that like, community means something to us at a much deeper level. And I know this to be true because I've had people that have come, years ago. I had a guy, this guy took me hunting up in like Massachusetts, this great guy, Darren. And, he calls me one day, he goes, "Hey man, I'd like to come down to Louisiana and come hunting and fishing. And, I'd love to do that." I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So he takes off work for a week and he flies down here. And at the time I owned a construction company, and, he came to work with me for like 2 days. So this guy just rides shotgun the whole time. Right. And we probably went to like 4 or 5 different job sites, but I'm showing up at these job sites and I'm like, I remember one of them was like Bouquet en Blanc, like Jake Mayo's there. Jake's a good buddy of mine. I get out, like give Jake a hug, we're like, hey man, what's going on? And so I'm interacting in all these different sites with all these different people. And this guy, his eyes keep getting wider and wider. And I'm like, and we get in a car at some point. He's like, is this real? And I'm like, is what real? He's like, are you really friends with all these people that you're doing business with? And I'm like, yeah. Well, he's an electrician back in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, dude, every single job I have is a fight. Every time I walk on a job site, it's people screaming and yelling, MF, all this stuff. And it's like, he's like, it's so toxic. Like people up there are just so rigid and like cold. He's like, this is like, I feel like I'm in like the Truman Show. Like this doesn't even, like, what is this? And I'm like, well, this is how we live and how we behave and act. Like this is how we do business here. And I'm not saying that things don't get toxic sometimes and people don't, but like for the most part, like our community, we're good people. And like, I think for the most part, people aren't trying to get over other people. Like we're trying to do fair things and we're all generous with it's kind of like I'm talking to you about podcasts before and you guys are like, yeah, I'll show you. Like we're all like, what can I do to support you? How can I serve you? Right. Yeah. And I think seeing an outsider from Baton Rouge that showed up and then saw that firsthand, it's like, he's like, this isn't normal. Like, it's like, it's like you ask the question, why Baton Rouge? It's like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not Baton Rouge? Like, we have brilliant people here. We have LSU here. We have the state cap. Like, we really have so many ingredients to make this place, like, I think one of the best places. I think it's too often that maybe we get down on ourselves or like, it's kind of like we stare at the warts versus like maybe backing up a little bit and going, man, but what assets do we have? And like, what are we not tapping into yet? And how do we kind of think about things a little bit different? So anyway, I'm babbling at this point. So
no, I think it's fantastic, everything you've said, because what you described on how we do business here is truly unique in our location and in our environment and culture, because it's true. You can walk on a job site, you can walk on any type of project or into a meeting and people are going to be friendly. You know, beyond just cordial, right? Beyond just professional. They're going to walk in and they're going to ask, oh, did you catch the game last night? They're going to make small talk, but then also end up after the fact like, all right, well, we're done. It's 3:00. Let's go get, an afternoon lunch and maybe a cocktail or something. Like, well, that's it. Like, we're going to walk out of here and we're going to become friends on the way down in the elevator and everything. But in other places, they're like, great, we'll see you. I'll shoot you a follow-up email after this. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And you got to think about it like this. I don't know what your inner circle looks like, and I don't know what your bigger circle looks like, but I would imagine you have a lot of clients and you have a lot of people that you do business with. Can you name for me any one of those that if you picked up the phone right now and just said, hey, I need something. I'm in a bind, or I need some help, or I need to think through something. How many of those are not taking your call?
Yeah. None, probably.
Right. And I think that is like, that's who we are. And like, I just believe that should be amplified and multiplied. Right. And I believe that, I think what you're doing here on this show is like an extension of that, because it's creating more network and it's creating more people getting to know each other. I've watched a couple of your episodes and it's like, okay, I got to meet somebody without having to physically meet them. But if I ran into him, it's like, it's on, like, I almost feel like I have a better connection, or I have a better connection with them, even though they don't know who I am, because now I understand them and now they're more of a human to me. You know what I'm saying? And so I just think there's so much good that we do here that doesn't happen in other places that, really, I think is something that's unique and special. And it's something that we should celebrate. And I think we should double down on, to be quite honest with you.
And I agree. It's part of the reason I started this was to do that exact thing. Get people, humanize them, take them and say, sit down and be on the same level and just share your story, good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be, in part to then also have this, moment in a bottle always there and always easily able to pull up and show your kids, your grandkids, your employees. We had somebody come on that they took their recording and their employees ended up watching it live at their office while we were doing it, and they all loved it. And then they came back and said, we feel more amped up about working with you as our leader than we did before.
Yeah, and that's
because we were able
such
to
a
see
gift
you,
that you gave them.
We were able to see you just raw and not unprofessional, but like just laid back, to so to speak, and where they were just able to kind of just share their story and not feel like they had to be all corporatized and buttoned up in a professional environment. They were able to just relax. Yeah. And doing that has made connections beyond just the folks that listen, but it's the people that actually work for these folks that we bring on that can say, wow, my boss went on and I got to learn some pretty cool stuff about him, but it also gives that shared experience. Even though you both weren't in the same room, you both had that shared experience in that moment and can talk to them about anything that you heard on there and say, oh, you were on the Patty G show and I heard you tell us about your fascination for, obscure random collectibles. Well, guess what?
I don't have that.
Well, hunting and fishing or, something relatable. And that person can say, oh yeah, I was on there. I did talk about that. Cool. What's your thing? And then it's that instant bond that you wouldn't have had without it. Yeah. It's making the already small Baton Rouge even smaller.
Yeah. So, for us, the word, like when we boil down to what Muddy Waters Clear Vision for us is, it's really the word is share. Right. And I know you can appreciate that too. It's just like this idea of like these amazing people that walk around our city. How do we get them to share their story? How do we get them to share their experiences in a way that it is very free to anyone? Right. Like I'm sure there's things that, trade secrets and things like that people don't want to share. That's cool. But what about all the other stuff? Yeah. And how can that like pour into somebody else and make someone else's life better? And how does that also make our community better? And I think there's just a lot of, that's a really long answer for what you asked about Muddy Waters Clear Vision, but it's a passion project and I didn't start it with really any intent of it being anything other than that. It's kind of grown into, kind of something a little bit more than what that original intent was, but that's okay.
Yeah. That's always a good thing whenever it grows beyond what you thought it could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you kind of mentioned several different things in that answer that you do or did at one point in time. Right. So backing it up to your, 98 when you're at LSU, where did your path take you from there?
Yeah, so my path actually started in 95. So my first business was when I was 15 years old. So it was a family business. So we talked about Vols Parish earlier. Mm-hmm. So my aunt and uncle, who live in Bunkie, Louisiana. My uncle Danny just actually passed away last year. But he owned a funeral home, and they had monuments, right? So they're doing monuments for the graveside, and he had some sales guy show up at his office one day and say, Danny, you should start making granite countertops. And so he convinced my uncle, and my uncle bought a bunch of granite countertops. I mean, they had all the tools because they do these monuments. And so he fabricated all these countertops for his house and for, I guess, a few of his buddies in Bunkie. And so he calls my dad. My dad's name is Joe. And he calls my dad and he's like, Joe, man, y'all got to come check this out. Like you got to do this in Baton Rouge. I mean, in Bunkie, we don't have any houses. In Baton Rouge, I got all this. And it's like,
we've already put countertops in all the houses here.
That's right. Yeah. We all three had. No, I'm joking. There's probably more. Anyway, I don't know how many people are in Bunkie, but anyway, so my dad and my brother Andrew and I, we all go up there and we go check it out. And so Danny's showing us all this stuff. I'm like fascinated. I'm 15 years old. I'm completely fascinated by what I'm seeing. And I think what Danny was trying to position, I'm the youngest of four boys. So my oldest brother Lee is 9 years older than me. My brother Martin, 6 years older than me. My brother Andrew is 15 months older than me. So I'm the youngest of four boys. And we're up there checking all this out. And I remember Danny being like, Joe, you really need to get your sons into doing this. Well, my oldest brother, Lee, at the time is like running Murphy's and Fred's. He's the GM of that. My brother Martin's in college and he's got his job. And so I remember and of course this is how I remember it, but I remember being like, wait, I want to do this. This looks really fun. Right. And so it was really like my dad, me and my brother Andrew, we started it and we came back to Baton Rouge and just decided to get into this. And literally, you talk about people being generous. Like my dad was in the insurance business at the time. And so he called a friend of his, Buddy Ori, and Buddy like gave us the back of his warehouse that he never uses. Right. I mean, gave it to us. And my parents bought all this equipment, and my dad had a Rolodex, which, you know, those used to exist back in the day. And I remember like, we would just like call his clients and be like, hey, Mr. Patrick, this is Stuart. I'm Joe's son. Love to come talk to you about granite countertops. And I mean, like, we're out there like 15, 16 years old selling granite countertops to people that are probably my age now or older, And it was wild because people were hiring us. Yeah. It's like, hey, this is going to be like $5,000 to do your kitchen. It's like, okay, here's your check. It's like, I look back on it now and it's like, I got to think that everyone wrote a check with like, okay, when this all implodes, I'm just going to call his dad and be like, Joe, I need my money back. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got started doing it, and we grew the business, and I got to LSU my freshman year. And so I was like into sports.
I was about to say, so you're still like 15 till LSU, you're working this granite business.
Yeah, like on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
Maybe some weeknights. So, but look, I played sports. I went to U High. I played football and baseball. I was super active socially. I mean, nothing ever stopped for the normal life that I was leading, right? It's just like we had this deal. We'd get up early on the weekends and we'd go cut and polish granite countertops, and we'd put it on a trailer and go out and install it. I mean, we were weekend warriors, but it was pretty cool. It was just, I wasn't out mowing yards. I was doing granite countertops.
I was mowing yards.
And so I got to LSU, and my freshman year at LSU was like super pivotal for me. I mean, I was 18. Or right when I graduated high school, one of my best friends, Tony Fertitta, died in a car wreck. And literally the night of his funeral, we're at an after party for that. And my oldest brother, Lee, shows up and says, hey, you need to come home. And I'm like, I'm not leaving. Like, we're all here celebrating my buddy. I'm not leaving. He's like, hey, you need to come home. Something's going on with Mom. And so I get in the car and ride home with them to my parents' house, and I get there, my mom, like, I don't know what's going on with her, but like something's not right, and they thought maybe she was just really like upset and distressed about the funeral of my friend. But we took her to the hospital and realized that my mom had she had a brain tumor, and she had originally had a brain tumor when she was 18 years old in 1965. And when you had a brain tumor in 1965, they didn't really know how to treat it. And so she went to Houston, and they saved her life. But the work that they did, the radiation that they did, caused in 1998 a radio-induced lymphoma that was inoperable, untreatable. And so my mom died December 5th, 1998. I'm a freshman at LSU. I'm a pledge. I'm a KA pledge. And I want to go to med school to become a psychiatrist. Like growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to med school, become a psychiatrist. That was like, ever since I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was really set on that's what I wanted to do. And I remember walking into a counselor's office. And so my mom has died. Mm-hmm. Our business is completely taking off. My 2 older brothers are leaving their careers to come get in the business. And I just remember all of this swirling around. And I remember I went and sat down with the counselor, and I said, what's the fastest way out of here? And she said, marketing. And I was like, I've always liked marketing. That sounds good. I felt like Danny Noonan off of Caddyshack, whenever it's like, have you ever thought of the priesthood? He's like, sure, I think about it all the time. It's like, I just knew I just needed to, it just felt like momentum was carrying me somewhere different. Right. And I don't know, I just made that decision that day. And really that's been kind of the story, for me, is that we continue to grow the business. I graduated from LSU after 4.5 years. I remember my last semester, I was taking 21 hours, and our shop foreman, he quit and moved to Colorado to become a hunting guide. I was really happy for he and his family.
Almost as bad as, psychology to marketing.
Yeah. But when he quit, it was like, okay, well now I'm in my senior year last semester, and I'm having to kind of do the work that I was doing, plus now help out with the work that he was doing. Right. So it was this crazy semester. And I remember like graduating from LSU and just kind of feeling like I was part-time retired. Now I could just go focus on the business. And at the time when I graduated LSU, we were just doing residential. We were probably doing like, I don't know, like maybe 20 to 25 houses a week. I mean, we were rolling. We were doing it all over the state. Yeah. I don't know how many employees we had at the time. I mean, of course, I can get my brothers to watch this. They can fact check all of this, but maybe we had, I don't know, 30, 35 employees, maybe 40 employees at the time. I really don't even know. But right after I graduated LSU, we started getting into commercial construction as well. And so I was kind of, I really kind of drifted towards that. It felt like bigger projects, bigger relationships, bigger opportunities. And so I really focused on that. And we grew that business until I think we exited like 2009. And that was a really kind of a, talk about muddy waters, clear vision. That was really tough for us. We had grown this business from nothing. We were really good at what we did. And we started working all over the Southeast United States with a bunch of different contractors doing, big things. Like we did the Superdome after Katrina. Wow. I mean, like if you named like a big project around the Southeast United States, hotel, casino type stuff, we were typically doing the work in there. I mean, the 19th Judicial Courthouse was one of the last projects we did. So if you ever walk in there, and I hope you don't have to go in there, but my daughter got a speeding ticket the other day, so I had to go in there. But like the 30 feet of granite walls and all that stuff that you see in the floors, like we did that job. Like that's the level of work that we were doing. I mean, we were really good at it. What happened was the market crashed, and we literally got, I mean, I won't name any names because it's not necessary, but I had a guy who owed us like about $750,000 who literally called me at that time and said, "Yeah, we're never going to pay you." I mean, we had really bad stuff start happening to us, and I'm kind of a big believer that people don't do bad things in business, but like in 2007, 8, 9, I learned firsthand what fear and scarcity do to people and the decisions that they make. And we started finding ourselves on the blunt end of those things. And it was really tough. It was really hard for us. I mean, I got married at 27. My wife, Kim, and we had a baby, and I'm sitting there holding my baby and I'm watching my whole world crumble around me. I mean, like literally, like I remember where I was standing when that guy told me he wasn't going to pay us.
Where were you standing?
I mean, I just remember the room. I remember the color of the walls. I mean, it's just like everything. And I just remember going, "Wait, what?" He goes, "Yeah, man, we're not going to pay you." And I'm like, "But it's material. Like,
yeah, I have to labor. Yeah,
I have to pay these. You're not going to." He's like, "Yeah, we're not going to pay you. I've got an attorney on retainer." And I remember just being like, "Why would you do that to somebody?" Like, and like, I'm not mad at I've forgiven that whole situation, but it's one of those things where like, I learned a lot about just myself and life through that moment. And I remember like, I don't sell products anymore like that have, cost of goods. So maybe that's really what I learned.
That cured you of that. You're like, I'm not buying and reselling.
Yeah, I'm not buying and reselling anything, but it was just like, it's those moments that I think really, I don't know that I learned the lesson in the moment, but I do believe that what it has taught me is it's taught me how to deal with like really stressful situations in business. But it's also like, I remember in that moment, one of the things I felt for him is I felt compassion. Like, okay, what's going on in his world? Like, what stress levels are they? Like, what's happening that they can't even pay us?
Well, and also the fact that he initiated the call.
Oh yeah, it was
like that. That's a whole different level of what is happening on their end of this deal. For him to say, we have to start calling and telling people.
Yeah, he called me and said, "Hey, your guys have been kicked off the job for failure to perform, and all the material that y'all loaded on the job site in the last couple of weeks is all ours." And yeah, it was just like this terrible thing. And I just remember being
I thought it was they couldn't, like they
No. He wasn't paying for anything. I mean, it was tough.
Yeah.
And it's like, and we dealt with that it was almost like that happened along with a bunch of other stuff happening all at the same time of that deal. And it really put us in a negative position. We ended up selling the assets of the business and getting out. But I mean, it was not good. It was not good at all. It's not the way that you want the thing that you started from the ground up to close out. But, you know, I do think that, you know, I believe that God has used those things for good in my life. And I believe that, those moments have helped me to be a more effective leader. They've helped me to be a more effective coach and advisor, and being able to help people navigate like some of those tough things that they're dealing with in their business, and just understanding that, you know, not everything is black and white.
Right.
You know, sometimes it's really soupy and sometimes it's really muddy, and you got to sometimes you got to be able to work your way through all of that to try to navigate what is that pathway and what is that direction and all. So, but yeah, and so after that business, I started another business called Skyhawk Security. Did that for 9 years. We ended up buying another company, kind of folding it into it. And really around, so that was 29 years old when I started that next one, but around 30.
What was it called?
Skyhawk Security.
Skyhawk Security. Okay.
Yeah. And then we ended up buying another company and rebranding as Skyhawk. But, that was a really fun company. That was really challenging in a lot of ways because of what we were doing, like solutions engineering on like technology and security. But, you know, for me, the truth is that around 27, when I got married and started having kids, I really, that's kind of where I got plugged back into church. 18 to 27, I don't know how many times I walked into a church. I felt I like to think of it, I was very much of the world at that time. And, around 27, my wife and a couple of our friends, Mark and Katie Goodson, ran a coup on me and got me into a church. And, literally like that day that we walked in, I just remember like, I really kind of doubled down on that whole side of things, like really going to church and getting more involved. We go to First Methodist, and I got real involved started taking on some leadership roles and volunteering and doing a few things. And it was really through my church and the community there that I really started having like more of a faith walk. And at the age of 35, so like 8 years into this faith walk, I went on a men's retreat called Walk to Emmaus. So I know a lot of our friends in Baton Rouge are real familiar with like Acts, right? The Catholic side of things. It's kind of a similar 72-hour men's retreat, but I went on this retreat and I really didn't go with any sort of like expectation other than I just was seeking a deeper relationship with Christ. You know, basically that's why I went. And what I found through that weekend, which is crazy, which you can self-discover in such a short amount of time, is that I may have been like just kind of focusing on all the wrong things. And when I walked out of there, God really started like changing my heart and transforming me in a lot of ways. And one of the things that became evident to me and clear, I can speak to it as clear now. It was
muddy at the time. Yeah.
Was, that I was not where I should be. And, you know, being in a place where things are like, I was having fun. I was enjoying the people I was working with. I enjoyed the work we were doing. I enjoyed the clients. I mean, there was definitely like frustrations, but at the same time, like all in all, it was good, but it was empty. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I spent a lot of time praying about it. I got a mentor, Todd Barlow became kind of my mentor at the time. And he was a guy I just went to church with. He's 15 years older than me, has 3 daughters. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, kind of a serial entrepreneur as well. And he and I started having coffee, but I started finding myself like literally in this place where I felt like God was calling me to say no to that. And that was really hard for me. I was like I feel like at the time my identity was wrapped around my business. Like if the business was doing well, I was sky high. If it was doing bad, I was down in the dumps. And it was kind of through this prayer and discernment that I realized that like, hey, I think I'm just supposed to say no to this. But the crazy part is I'm sitting here like it. By the way, this journey started at 35. I start feeling that I should say no around 37 or 38. It just took, I'm just a slow learner. And like all these ways. Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I just was so confused. But I had this whole thing of like, okay, so I walk into my partner's office and I'm like, hey guys, I think I want to sell. You want to get out. And they, we worked through all that stuff. And I remember like some of the first questions are like, well, what are you going to go do? And I'm like, I don't know.
You had no plan.
I had no plan.
You had like not even a thought of a plan.
And so, of course, like the investors and my partners, they're all like, whoa, what are you going to do? And I'm like, no, like, I have no idea. They're like, are you going to go compete? Are you going to go get in this business? And I'm like, I'm not doing that, but I don't know what I'm going to go do. And I think it probably took like a couple of years of me doing this new thing for people to be like, oh, I think he was being serious about that, But I was so lost. All I knew was I needed to say no. I had no idea what was going to be next, the yes. And I remember like while we hadn't quite closed yet, we're going through all the motions of everything. And I remember my wife being like, hey, what are we going to do? Like in all serious, because I'm not
like we're here now.
Yeah, and by the
like
way,
you signed next week. Like,
we were a
the
small
plan?
business, and we weren't selling it for enough money to retire, right? Like by any means. I mean, like, and I have 3 daughters. Like, you still have to work, and I'm like, I don't know. And so we're driving down the road, and she's kind of like, she's being very patient, ton of grace, and just giving me space. And I'm praying like crazy, and I'm just trying to seek and understand. And nothing, I mean, when I say nothingness, I mean, like when I would think about it, it was just like a blank screen. It's like looking at the green screen. It's just like, and I'm driving down the road and she's like, seriously, Stuart, what are we going to do? And it hits me. Like, I remember where I was right in front of Lighthouse Coffee and New York Bagel on Lee Drive. And I'm like, hey, what if I go back to med school and become a psychiatrist? And she was like, have you lost your mind? And I'm like, I don't know, Kim. I'm like, I'm so like confused about what's next, and I just don't know. And, it wasn't shortly thereafter that multiple people who I love and trust in the community, who I think are just absolute pillars, showed up and started asking me like, hey, I understand you're leaving that. Would you be interested in potentially coming in and being a consultant for our business? And I'm like, a what? A consultant?
Like, what do they do?
I was like, I don't even like consultants. Literally. I never really saw the value of a consultant. And I was like, what? No, I can't, I couldn't do that. And my business partner, Todd Barlow, now, who is my mentor, like 2 years prior to this moment, we went to lunch, we went to coffee one day and he goes, hey, I want to share a business plan with you of an idea that I have. And I'm like, okay. So he gives me this business plan. He goes, take it home and read it or whatever. So I'm mired in my crap, right? Like I am confused about whether I should stay or go. I don't have any sort of like clarity whatsoever. I haven't even talked to my business partners about maybe me leaving. I go home and I open up this business plan. This business plan is called Trilogy Partners. Right. And I start reading it and I'm like in bed, just like laughing and like, wow, this is amazing. And it's this whole concept of like, what if this small group of entrepreneurs comes together and we go out and we invest in like 20 companies and we take this like fractional role and we're their guides, we're their advisors, we're their connectors, but we have this bent on where we want to be like really generous. Like we want to be generous with our money, with our time. We want to challenge these businesses to be generous. Like it's just all this. It was the complete reversal of anything I had ever thought about or behaved like in business.
Yeah.
And not that in business, I don't think I was ever like an asshole or mean or not generous. I just like, it was just like this whole divorce of everything that I had ever believed and thought about business. And I remember like, this is amazing. Somebody should totally do this. And so like the next time we had coffee, I was like, man, that business plan's amazing. You should totally do it one day. He's like, yeah, maybe one day. Could never even see myself in that deal. I was just, again, such in a mired place of just mud and messiness. And so he calls me one day. This is in 2019. He's like, hey, how's it going? Any prospects? And I'm like, no. I'm like, in fact, all I've got is I've got this person, this person, this person tell me I should come in and be a consultant. And he was like, yeah, maybe you should do that. And I'm like, Todd, I don't even know what that even means. He's like, yeah, but Stuart, I think you could really help people. I think you could help entrepreneurs grow their businesses. And I'm like, you think so? And he goes, hey, you remember that business plan? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what if we go do that? And I'm like, I hadn't even thought about this thing for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I'm like, wait, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. Let's go do that. Like, let's go put that thing in motion. Go talk to Kim, tell her he and I have been meeting together for 2-3 years at this point. Like, we had developed this relationship. He's like, let's go be partners and do this thing. And I'm like, oh my God. So he and I start meeting, we start ironing it all out, and we decide April 1st, 2019, that's what we're going to go do. We're going to go start this Trilogy Partners, and we're going to go out and try to find all these different companies that we can help grow through like advising and coaching and investing. Right. And that's what we did. We went out and got started doing this. And that's what we've been up to for like the last 6 years of doing this. And it's been like super fun and dysfunctional and messy. And we've worked with clients who do over $1 billion a year in revenue to clients who like literally don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And it's been fun, and it's been everything that we thought it could be. But what we also realized a few years ago is that it was too dysfunctional. And I'm really drawn towards this small business owner. I'm really drawn to the people who need more help than they have resources for. And it was really through that lens that we started looking at the business that really kind of kicked off this whole Grow with the Alliance and the nonprofit that we've recently started. So anyway, that was again a long answer to a short question.
No, so in doing that with your clients, where you're helping them grow and expand their business, how many do you have, I guess, under the umbrella, and are you still fulfilling what you were going to do with buying fractional ownerships of them?
Yeah. So what we realized is like we're more daters than marriers. It seems like, I think we were really high on getting equity in all these different businesses.
Oh yeah.
We just thought it was amazing. And I think what we've realized is that as much as we thought that was going to be like the main focus of our organization, it wasn't. The main focus of our organization. We started working for nonprofits. We started, it was when I say dysfunctional, yeah. I'm just saying like, and not that those people were dysfunctional, we were being dysfunctional. Like we were just, it was almost like if I met somebody, and by the way, my partner Todd is not a dysfunctional person. He's actually like very clean and neat and does all the right things. I am the dysfunction that has been existing there. For me, it was just like, I would meet somebody and they would explain about the scenario or the thing that they're trying to solve in their business. And it was like, wow, that sounds really interesting and fun. And there was a way for me to be able to go do that. And we could partner up and, there's a retainer there. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to go do that. And so I just started doing all that. I became a Vistage chair in that process as well. So like, it was just like, I was A/B testing. I was trying as many things as I could. I was a hammer and everything looked like a nail. Everything looked like, okay, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's go jump in and try to figure that out. And we've done some really amazing stuff, and we've worked with some really amazing organizations, and we've worked with over 100 different organizations in the last 6 years. I think it's like 135 or so now. And again, it was good, but it was also like really hard for us to understand who we really were. And it wasn't until we realized that these companies that were $10 million a year in revenue and below, not startups. And I know there's a debate on what is small business and what is startup, but in our minds, like 10 million and below, and below means like they have employees. They're not just like a pure startup, like, hey, I'm one person and I've got an idea, right? They've got a little bit of a track record. And that's really how the birth of the Alliance came out, where we were like, okay, well, we don't believe that those organizations have enough money to pay us to do the services that we need to do. So how do we just think about this? How do we say the obstacle is away? And how do we look at this business or this opportunity and go, okay, well, maybe if we look at it in a different way, maybe if we're thinking about it through a nonprofit lens, there's ways that we could get community support and we can get other people behind us who believe that what we believe, that if we help these small businesses grow, this could have the greatest impact on our community. I mean, 60 to 70% of our employees of our citizens are employed by small businesses.
Yeah.
And right now, what we believe is that we believe that for small businesses, it's a desert. I believe there's places like Nexus that are all about the startup. I believe there's private equity and there's bigger banks that are all interested in a larger, more sustainable business. But what about the businesses that are just kind of struggling to like punch through that, that paper bag or like I like to think of it, in that desert? Well, we believe that we might be just crazy enough to be the ones that want to jump in and help them. And we don't see their dysfunction as like, oh, well, you can't pay me, I'm not willing to help. But we're just kind of taking a different kind of perspective to that. But we believe this. We believe that the next generation of philanthropists and the next generation of community leaders and those entrepreneurs that we all look at as like the Mount Rushmore people, I believe right now they're in our small business community. I believe they're the companies that are under $10 million a year. And so when we started the Alliance on October 1st, 2024, we literally set out with the fact of like, what can we do to serve these small businesses through this nonprofit in a way that they've never been served before in Baton Rouge? And we're pretty proud of what we've done so far. I mean, it hasn't been easy, and it's been an absolute struggle because they lack time and money. Yeah. And so we have to meet them where they are, and there's a lot of things we have to do. But we're really excited about the fact that if we can move the needle there, we believe that we could create a small business haven in Baton Rouge, like where if you have a small business, you want to be in Baton Rouge because the resources and the people that there are committed to helping you grow the business like nowhere else.
Yeah. And I think we have the ability to become that haven for folks that want to start their new business.
Right.
But those folks at that level, to your point, they don't have time, they don't have money. I find that some often also don't have clarity in what they need to begin with.
That's right.
In what problems they're going to face within the next 12, 24, 36 months. They just don't know because of how new or how low revenue they are. There's just unforeseen obstacles that are going to get just hit in the face with that they have no idea. So having somebody like you come in and say, okay, you're trying to grow from, this to 1/2x. Well, here's what you're going to face along the way.
Yeah.
And here's how you can mitigate some of that. Here's some stuff you need to do in order to not have this massive growth and all of a sudden go right back to where you were, or most of the times before where you were, because you're going to have some loss if you can't keep up with that demand that you've created.
Yeah.
And so having someone there as that sounding voice to say, let's think about this. Why don't you just kind of make one tweak here, one tweak there, and start dating some folks to make hires later.
Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau, you won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves, where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out. Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we believe is what they're lacking as well is like advisors and mentors, right? And so, that's part of it, is that like we want to identify where are they trying to go and what are those priorities. And I love what you said too, because the reality is that for most small business owners, there's so many priorities that nothing's a priority, right? Like it's like
everything's urgent.
Yeah. When there's 80 fires, you can't even, you know what I'm saying? You're just like managing these fires. And so, our belief is like, what do they need to be able to become a generous business owner in Baton Rouge, right? Is that connection to capital? Is that connection to mentors, advisors, other resources that are needed, right? And so, and I want to be clear, the alliance is so much bigger than any one person, right? Like right now, I get to have the opportunity to be the leader of it. But the truth is, we have an amazing leadership team. Like we have like Julie Laperouse and Gabe Murillo and Jay Dixon and Philip Lafargue. And I mean, there's this whole, and if I just kept going on and on of all these other people who literally their thumbprints are all over this. They have helped us, like they have taken what our vision was like, hey, we want to go do this. And they've been able to walk alongside us and really kind of help us think about, well, what should this be and how should this exist? And not only are those people part of the leadership team, but they're also users of it. Now they're members of the alliance, and they're like, and now they're allowing our leadership team and our team that we have on staff to be able to serve them and to be able to help them grow their business. And so it's very much for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs. And I like to think that we have members and leadership, they're kind of in both seats doing that. But how else do we learn? But then by, being able to have that type of people involved with it. And, anyway.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And another thing that you can also show them is, generally, if you ask people at that age, what is your biggest need? It's going to be a capital.
Yeah.
They're going to need some capital of some sort. But being creative in the conversations with them and saying, okay, well, what do you need it for?
Yeah.
Oh, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, let's go and talk to some organizations that provide that service and or product and see if they can just work with you rather than having to go find outside investors to come in and fund you. Let's see if we can go to where you want to end up and say, hey, how can we figure out a solution here? And to your point, with you coming in saying, oh, I need to do all this for the show, and Jay and I saying, oh, here's, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's like, okay, well, these are some resources that weren't acquired through capital. It's like there's other ways you can accomplish what you're after.
I think relationships is the greatest
100%.
Is the greatest capital that we have, right? And the thing is too, and I think you can appreciate this as well, is that most businesses believe that they need more capital, but they really don't. I'm not saying the capital can't help, but like, what's the vision? What's the clarity? What's the purpose? What's the plan? What's the strategy? Where are you going to put it? There's so many other things we have to get clear about and we have to solve versus just drop. Money doesn't fix anything if we don't know what we're going to go do with it and we don't have like a return on the investment. We don't understand what are those dollars actually going to do for our organization. And I do believe that when you live in a desert and you have access to capital, but nobody is guiding or nobody is doing the hard work in the trenches with them, that capital could just be like, it literally could be the greatest like curse for them. It could be the thing that actually like destroyed their business, and they didn't even know that this blessing could have been, if properly handled in the right strategy and the right people around them and the right people helping them make those decisions. Yeah, it's a blessing, but until that, it's not. And so I do think that's one of the things that we're trying to instill in our businesses that we're working with is we're trying to create them healthy from the inside out. Right. But anyway, and it's been really exciting to see, what impact we've been able to have so far by being more intentional through the alliance versus how we were doing it at Trilogy Partners.
Yeah. Now you're able to really get down to here's where we can bring value and let's just execute there.
Yep. Absolutely.
I love that, man. I'm excited.
And the third leg of the stool, so all this is called Grow with the Alliance. And the third leg of the stool is really another passion project that started for me. I mean, so kind of the crazy thing is all three legs of the stool, it was not intentional the way it's been built. But the third leg is First Tuesday. And so first Tuesday is our volunteer day in which we connect the business community with nonprofits. And so that started September 6, 2022. That all spawned from, I went on some mission trips at the end of July 2022. The last week of July, I went on back-to-back mission trips, one here in Baton Rouge with our 9th and 10th graders from First Methodist, and then one in Birmingham, Alabama with our 7th and 8th graders. And coming back from those mission trips, I just really, and my heart was full. I mean, these kids were just phenomenal, hands and feet of Christ. They just, you know, our youth are constantly undervalued for how amazing they are. And I'm sure at some level that's, you know, warranted or earned. But, you know, when you get these kids on a mission trip and you get them like focused on what it means to actually like serve and do the things that it's pretty inspiring. And so I'm driving back from Birmingham, Alabama that Sunday night, and I'm just like, okay, what do I do with this? Well, I mean, I just witnessed like this amazing week. And it was through that really like that next day, through a conversation with one of the CEOs I coach, we really kind of stumbled upon. He actually like reversed the script on me. He's like, what does that mean to you? What are you going to do about it? And all these things. And First Tuesday was really birthed that day, on August 2nd, actually, 2022. And so our first date to go out and do it was September 6th. And so now we're coming up on our 33rd straight month.
Love it.
We've had, over 1,100 volunteers for like over 8,400 hours and almost $300,000 worth of impact.
Wow.
And we've, we go out, we're averaging about 60 volunteers a month now. And our first client in that is the volunteer. So it's not the CEO and it's not the nonprofit. Our first client is basically like, how can we create a memorable experience for the volunteers so that they'll say yes again? And we do that by highly curating the events. So like nonprofits will reach out to us and say, like, I was talking to a merge school earlier today, but last year they reached out to us and they said, hey, we want to repaint our school. And so it cost them about $17,000 to repaint their school.
Okay.
So Turner Industries partnered with us on that project. And so first Tuesday, Turner Industries, and then a handful of other small businesses in town sent their people out to work on the painting of that school project, right? And we painted it all in one day. And literally, like, you know, fed breakfast, fed lunch, educated everybody on a nonprofit that we're serving that day, and created a high value opportunity for Emerge. Now they could take that $17,000 and they could go point it back into their services.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to coordinate the volunteers. They didn't have to do anything. All they had to do was tell us what they needed, open their doors. And it's the same thing for the businesses. We just asked them to send us their employees. I don't need them to figure out paint and supplies. I don't need them to figure out anything. And so like we've done the same type projects for Front Yard Bikes, the Food Bank, Revive 225, Companion Animal Alliance, Friends of the Animal, St. Lillian Academy. I mean, every month, we're typically between like 3 to 5 different nonprofits. And so we coordinate those days, and then we take your employees and we put them out in the field, and we have a highly curated day for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back to exactly what I had said earlier about if they would have just come out for the ask and said, oh, we need $17,000. Okay, well, what do you need that for? Well, we need to paint the building. No, you need a painted building. You don't need $17,000.
Yeah.
Here's how we get that. You know, it's like, what's your end result you're trying to get, and with the capital removed? Yeah. And let's see if we can solve that.
That's right. I mean, you know, it is what needs to be done, and then what is the solution that's going to back that up, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is, I think that what we're finding is that there's a lot of business owners who are really generous and they'd like to send more of their employees out to volunteer. Mm-hmm. The issue is this: they don't have time to coordinate it.
Yeah.
They don't have time to find it. They don't have time to, and like we're literally like feeding them breakfast. I mean, like I jokingly say we treat the volunteers like third graders, right? We don't let them take naps or they'd be like kindergartners, right? But like we're doing our part to try to make volunteering simplified. That's it. So like when an organization reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we're interested," like I'm gonna call them out now, so they have to do it. MAP Construction reached out and they're like, "Hey, what is this?" It's like, okay, well, here's how this is gonna work. Think of us as your fractional volunteer coordinator.
Yeah,
like literally, like tell me what your affinity is. Do you have some nonprofits that you want to support? Well, let me know who they are. I'll go call them. And I'll say, "Hey, we're First Tuesday. This is what we do. Is there anything that we could do that would be meaningful for you guys?" Yeah. Because these nonprofits, every dollar that they have should be focused on their mission.
Correct.
What's the thing that they need done? And it could be something like reorganize their warehouse. It could be like every time we go out and serve the food bank, we don't do a special project for the food bank. The food bank's really well organized. They just need more volunteers. So if we send 15 or 20 volunteers there, we just go right into their normal volunteer matrix. That's perfect. That's easy. Same thing with Companion Animal Alliance. Revive 225. We go out and do home repair ministry. Like the more volunteers that they can have, the more houses they can go fix in North Baton Rouge. And they go and they are like literally completely remodeling these people's houses for free for these homeowners to try to stave off homelessness, to try to protect our elderly who cannot protect themselves, right? Like some of them have like missing windows. Well, like we want to go like fix that and make it where it's a more livable condition for them, right? So each of these different nonprofits, like we're at St. Lillian right now, fixing up their school for them. So it's like, how do we say, "Hey, look, focus on your mission and give us the things that are keeping you from that mission? What are the things that are blocking you from?" And if we can keep your raised dollars on mission, how much more impactful is that for them?
Yeah. Where else can you deploy it to better serve?
Absolutely. And so we really feel like with First Tuesday, again, this started from a passion project. It was really like, the idea was like, well, what if me and my buddies that I coach, my CEO buddies, what if we all just went out and did this thing? It's just really kind of grown these legs. And there's a lot of people from the community reaching out and interested in how can we serve them, right? And so we see ourselves very much as that connection point between the nonprofits and the business community, and where we kind of tie all these three legs together of grow with the alliance, is we think, okay, if we can help the small business community grow right now, like it's never had before, because we just haven't had a program or a community-based approach of that. If we can get some of our best entrepreneurs to be able to share their stories, and you're doing that too. So, kudos, and you've been doing it, like you're, 5X, whatever I can do. Right. But it's this idea of like, how can we play our role to share more of that? And we have ideas of how to even expand Muddy Waters Clear Vision to start grabbing some more of that, like the First Tuesday side of it, right? And getting more of our nonprofit leaders involved in that. And I'd love to talk to you offline a little bit more and share more of our vision about that. But it's like, if we're doing those things really well, First Tuesday is the place where we can connect the Turner Industries of the world with the small business community and the nonprofits. And look, we have very generous, large organizations in this town. But I will tell you, and they would tell you if they were here too, curating those opportunities is hard. Yeah. It's hard for them.
It's time consuming for them.
Absolutely.
They want to be able to deploy it, but they don't have the bandwidth to be able to go out and say, okay, where's the biggest area of need? Where if they have somebody like, you shows up, says, hey, what are your missions align with? Let's go find some, and here's your options. Here's your dinner menu. Just pick what you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Emerge School happens. So like, this is kind of wild and crazy. In fact, I just talked to AJ over there. I actually interviewed her a little bit just to get her feedback on First Tuesday. But like, Turner wanted to paint their building, but it was way too far of a stretch for them to logistically figure out. They couldn't get enough people to volunteer at the time. And so Turner called Emerge and said, hey, what if we connect you to First Tuesday? Like, let them just coordinate and handle all this stuff. They gave us like a week. Like literally, I get a phone call from them like, hey, we'd like you to paint our school next week. And it was like, okay, all right. Turner's in? Yeah, Turner's in. Okay, gotcha. But like, we immediately moved into what is the project? What is the scope of work? Where are all the materials, right? Because the thing is, like, if Turner or others send employees out there and we don't have all the stuff ready,
It's not worth it.
it's not worth it. We've wasted their time, right? So we're very, like, I always tell every nonprofit, and I mean this in the most loving, caring, kind way I can say, you're not our first client. John, who works at ABC Distribution,
Yeah.
who's a manager or a cashier or clerk or whatever his role is, or a driver, he's our first client. If you and I can't work out the logistics, if we can't figure out scope of if we can't figure out materials and things that need to be here, John's going to have a bad day. John has a bad day. He goes back to his boss and says, don't send me back to First Tuesday again.
Yeah.
We're not willing to risk that reputation. And it's usually through that conversation that the nonprofit goes, totally get it, understand it. I'll actually want him to be the first client.
Yeah.
What do I need to do now to be a part of the team that creates that day for him, so that when he shows up, he now has affinity to my nonprofit and he wants to go back and volunteer again. We all win. Oh, yeah. And I've been in a Revive 225 house. I'll keep names safe here, but like, I was literally in a Revive 225 house and somebody looked over at the stove in this lady's house and said, wait, is that her stove? And I said, yeah. He was like, not anymore. Pulls out his phone and like orders a stove. And then says, hey, I'll be back next month. I want us to install the new stove for her. I'm like, so here's a guy, here's a business owner that decided to take a day off to go volunteer. Walks into a kitchen, is helping paint. We were painting. Looks at a stove and says, nope, cannot be here. That stove will not do. Buys a new stove, we install it the next month. I've watched it happen with hot water heaters. I've watched that happen with, I'm telling you, I've watched this stuff happen where it's like, oh, because he came in close proximity to this nonprofit who walked him into the proximity of this person in need. That person in need gained a greater gift because somebody saw something and was willing to do something about it.
Yeah.
I think First Tuesday exists to just create those scenarios. For what?
Whatever it may be.
Whatever it may be. Like, whatever that ripple effect is, right? We also had another guy out on a First Tuesday deal, and he calls me to the back of the house. Is at Revive 225. And he's like, oh my God, this house has got all these termite issues. And he's like, oh my God, we got to stop. We got to stop. Like, and I'm like, stop what? And he's like, well, I mean, this house is going to fall down, right? He's just like panic mode. And I just like calmly walk him to the front yard. And I'm like, I need you to look this way. And I need you to look this way. A majority of these houses have the same issue right now. Well, he happens to be connected to the pest control industry. He happens to get on the phone with one of the highest up guys with Orkin out of like Atlanta. And the guy's like, wait, what's going on? So now Orkin's like donating, like they're doing like 30 houses a year for Revive 225.
That's awesome. Because
a local business owner here saw something, knew something, connected a few dots and said, that's not right. And he didn't ask my permission to go do this. He called me like a week later. He's like, hey, I've been in Atlanta. I talked to this guy. What's the number to George Ragsdale over at Revive 225? I'm like, here, go. I mean, like, why aren't we doing more of that? Yeah. Like all the time. But, you know, I think it's easy for the bigger companies to be generous. I think where it's harder is our small companies. Mm-hmm. So what if we could really support them and show them how they can be generous even when maybe things aren't as abundant as they'd like to?
Yeah.
What if we break things down for them in a way that's like, hey, we're going to be generous to you and help grow your business. We're just asking, while we're being generous to you, can be generous to our community. What can you do to give back? And I'm watching more and more of our small businesses show up to First Tuesday. maybe a half day, maybe a full day, maybe all of their team, may not be any of their team. Precision Structured Cabling, who's the guy that got this out of me on August 2nd, 2022. They've been there every single month with every one of their employees.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you need Todd Pettivino on this show. That dude and he is unbelievable, but he is walking the walk. And First Tuesday exists because of him, his wife, and the fact that they were the ones who said, Stuart, we got to make this happen. And they're committed to doing that. And they've been there time and time again. And we need more people who act and behave like Precision Structured Cabling, who literally is a team of like 6, but they have the heart of a company of 6,000. Like they give at a level that you're like, that doesn't make sense. But you're a numbers guy. If you went and looked at their numbers, their P&L, and how this all plays out since they started giving that full day a month, it'd blow your mind.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
And when you have Todd come on here, because you have to now,
yeah,
you need to ask him about that. And one day, I went to one of his key guys and I said, why do y'all do this? Why do y'all do First Tuesday? He's like, it's the best day of the month. I said, yeah, but like, y'all are losing 1/22 of your ability to earn. He said, it doesn't matter. He said, we just work harder the other 21 days because we do not want to lose this.
Yeah.
We do that so we can do this. And I'm like, What does a community look like when one company thinks like that? But what does a community look like when 10 companies think like that? What does a community look like when 100 companies think like that? And I'm like convinced that the ingredients for our community thinking like that, they already exist. They're already in motion. They're already alive and well. We just need more people knowing what it is that we're up to. And we need more people who are like, you know what? I'll buy that. Because there are no downsizes to this. There is no, like, being generous is not something that will ever harm this community. But a scarcity mindset, that will absolutely eat us from the inside out, right? And anyway, I go, I geek out about this stuff, man, because I'm watching this stuff happen in real time. Like I'm seeing the impact that this is having in so many places and spaces right now, and it's overwhelming. And at the same time, just super encouraging and helps me every day. Just like go, okay, we got to go deeper. We got to figure out what's next, right?
Yeah.
So,
no, I love it though, man.
Yeah,
you're making a true impact. But yeah, connect us. I'd love to get him on.
Yeah,
and have them share their story.
Yeah,
because it's true. It's people want to help, they just don't know where or how to help. And so getting it out there, saying here are the options, here are the times, here's what you can do, here's how you, even as small as you think you are, can play a big role.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we're watching that. We're watching it happen. So anyway, yeah, it's good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today. Before we get you out of here, though, we do have a set list of questions we ask every guest. So the first one is, what is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
All right. So my first job, when I was a little kid, my godfather, who was just a mountain of man, Doug Watkins, he and his wife Wanda owned a Christmas tree farm in Waldheim, Louisiana, called the Bojingle Christmas Tree Farm.
Where in Louisiana?
Waldheim.
Like, what is that around?
North of Covington.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't even know how old I was. Maybe like 10 or 11 or something like that. And I'd walk around with that sawtooth, like the saw that you cut your trees down. And I would watch families show up, and I got to be their guide. And I got to ask them questions like, okay, what are you looking for? And I know this sounds stupid, but like for me, this was so, and like, I would watch, like, their kids were sometimes like 16 and 17. It's like, who is this kid walking us around? But I'd help them pick it, and they would be like, well, we're looking like for something like this. And I knew where that tree, I knew where every tree was. I knew what they looked like. I had it all. And then I would go and like saw it down, and I'd bag it and do all this stuff and like the whole deal. And then like put it in their car and then like send them off for Christmas. And it was like, I would do that job all day, every day. It was like, so my godparents would pick me up. So whenever we get off of school, first, second week of December or whatever, and I would go to the farm with them, and I would do that. I'd probably work for like 14 straight days.
Wow.
And loved every minute of it. And we would work from before sun up to sundown, and it was just awesome. Yeah, that was, if I could go back, child labor, right?
Yeah,
it's
child labor at a Christmas tree farm.
Yeah, I'd be
manual child labor.
Manual child labor at a Christmas tree farm.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. And my godfather and his wife Wanda, they both passed away. But they were just such influential people to me. In fact, I think I was in 6th grade when I realized they were my grandparents. So I just thought I had 3 sets of grandparents. So
you were unique.
Yeah.
I love that though. That's outside of the child labor piece. It's a good memory. Being able to help people in a happy time of their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is something that you love about Baton Rouge? Being as plugged in as you are in the community, being as involved with the philanthropic organizations and the for-profit organizations that you are. What is something you love about being here?
I mean, I love everything about Baton Rouge. I think one of the things that's really unique about Baton Rouge is like we're big enough to be influential, right? And we talked about that earlier. I mean, we're a state capital, but like we're small enough to like make things happen. We can literally put action into place. And I'm not saying that we've always done what we need to do as a community, but I'll tell you, I'm just as bullish as I can possibly be about who we are and where we're going. And so I think the thing I love about Baton Rouge is just how much possibilities there really is here right now. And I think what's affirming for me, even meeting you like the other day and getting to know you a little bit more today, what's affirming to me is I keep bumping into the people who I believe are going to be a part of that solution. And whether they're deputized yet or whether they're in motion of doing that, I'm just telling you, I can see all these people that can absolutely be a part of what we can do in Baton Rouge to really take what we're really good at and the things that we're already doing well and just amplify and multiply those things. I don't know. I just couldn't be more excited about who we are and where we're going. So
I love it. You've done quite a bit over the years, and you've had a lot of trials, tribulations, and successes along the way. What are 3 lessons you have gained over the years?
Yeah, so I talked about this one earlier, but I'm more convinced of this every day, and that is that relationships are like the highest form of currency that we have. And I'm really committed right now to trying to do my part to further those, not just for myself, but for others. And really, building safe spaces and community like we're trying to do with Grow with the Alliance, First Tuesday, the Alliance, Muddy Waters, what you're doing here at this show. It's creating relationship capital that I think it has such a multiplying effect for people and communities. And I think communities that really like people connect and have deeper relationships are healthy communities. And it's like, I don't care how much money you have in your community. If people don't have relationships, that community is dead.
Yeah.
It's dead. I mean, drop all the money in the world you want in the middle of Baton Rouge and we don't want to talk to each other and we don't want to be friends. Is it a place you want to live?
Yeah.
It might have the coolest looking buildings and I don't know, but like, it's not really a place I want to live. I want to live in a place where the relationships are the richest they can be and where people value it and honor it. So I wrote these down so I wouldn't forget. The other value that I think is immeasurable is something that I have experienced at such a high level, I would say like the last 10 years of my life, that I think the first 20 years of being an entrepreneur I didn't have, and that's mentorship and coaching. My first 20 years, I went at this thing completely alone. I mean, I wouldn't have said a tenth of the things I've said here today based off of like, well, I don't know, like, do you really care? Like, should I share? Everything was in my own mind. Sometimes I think about my first 20 years and if I thought about it in a phrase, it'd be like, I was a prisoner of my own mind. I wasn't willing to let others in. I guess I felt like I could just figure it out. Like I could solve it. Like I'm smart enough, right? And I also think that I just thought that seeking outside counsel or wisdom was like a sign of weakness. And I'm okay that I operated that way for 20 years because I think it's what God's using to allow me to be so passionate about the fact that like I don't believe that anybody is above having a coach, having a mentor, having wise counsel around them in any way, shape, or form. Like, so to me, I think that cannot be undervalued. I think the other thing too is that clarity creates simple and clean, right? And this is like, I wish I could tell you this is like profound wisdom of like years and years, but like, I got to tell you, like that statement for me is like 3 weeks old, maybe 2 weeks old. And it's this idea that I think when we, and I think I always believed it. It's just like, I had this like epiphany about it a few weeks ago, and I've been like really unpacking it with my business partners. But it's like this idea that like, when we have this simple and clean clarity, like energy, momentum, inertia, support, right? Like if you said, hey, what can you do to help me? And I gave you 15 things, you can do none of them. It's like, I'm holding all these things. But if I was like simple, clean, and just said, hey, can you help me do this one thing? And if you said the same thing to me, right? It's almost like, okay, well, what then happens with that? If you're true and you're sincere about it, energy, right? Clarity, like you kind of know what you need to go do with that thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I just think that like getting people to be clear, and Dave Ramsey says this all the time, to be clear is to be kind, right? And you talked about this earlier with these entrepreneurs. It's like, they're not even clear. Like they don't know what they should be doing, right? So I think clarity creates clean and simple. It creates energy. It creates momentum. It creates inertia, and it creates that support structure to be able to come around us and say, okay, that's the thing we're trying to solve. That's the thing we need to go do.
I love it.
Yeah.
So what can I do to help you?
I'm convinced that what we're up to is the right thing. Like I feel it in my bones right now. I think one of the things that we're doing right now is that like today, we're actually starting a crowdsourcing or a crowdfunding for First Tuesday. And so to this point, First Tuesday, the Alliance, all this stuff has been pretty much been funded by me and my partner at Shorty Partners. And so we're about to get on the campaign of like getting out and doing some, and we've had partners show up like BRAC, LED, B1 Bank, CSRS, PBM Solutions. Like we have people who have showed up and have absolutely supported us, but it's time to take that next step. And so I think one of the things that we're really big on right now is we want to create more capacity. We want to have a better technology platform and better impact reporting for First Tuesday. So today is the day we're actually starting a crowdsourcing on that deal. And so we're really just looking to raise like $20,000 this month to get the community behind First Tuesday to take that next step before we kind of take our bigger leap on some other fundraising. And so, so you can help me. So what I'm going to do, to be clear, is I'm going to shoot you a text message today with a link. And if you feel called to do it, great. And if not, that's okay too. But if you mind sharing with some people, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll drop it in the show notes on the podcast.
Yeah.
And let people find the link directly.
Yeah, that sounds good. So thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm saying that sincerely too, just as somebody who's like, I believe that there's a lot of value in sharing, and I believe what you have been doing since 2019 is phenomenal. You've inspired me. I look up to you, and I'm like, man, Patty G is all over it and doing a great job. What do I need to do to step up my game?
Add video.
Yeah, that's it.
There's the clear. There's the clear.
Yeah, that's my second ask, but we're going to stay with the crowdsourcing for today. So
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
I appreciate your time today, and everybody else listening or tuning in as well. Thank y'all so much. We're going to have the link in their crowdfunding campaign in the show notes. So like Stuart said, if you feel called to help with First Tuesday, do so. We'd be much appreciative. We will be doing that at the show. So thank y'all so much. We'll see y'all next week.